racist stereotypes aren't true.
I'm sorry, can you back up real quick? I think you made a mistake. Racial stereotypes are true. Racial stereotypes are true. That's why they have persisted, because they are drenched in truth. What an absurd thing to say. They are generally and by and large true statements. Already we're off to a terrible start. Racist stereotypes are not true, right? Right. Here's a stereotype. Turkish people are anti-Semitic. That's a stereotype. It's also true. Just like you, Cenk. Just like you.
But what's amazing is how much they are the exact opposite of the truth, and oftentimes projection.
Oh, here we go. Here comes some armchair psychology from this failed offensive lineman. This fucking disgrace. This chubby, sweaty, self-important egomaniac is going to teach us about what people are thinking. He's a psychic. Let's watch.
So one racist stereotype is Mexicans are lazy.
What the fuck are you saying? Mexicans are lazy. That is not a racial stereotype. I've lived in Los Angeles. So do you. Surrounded by Mexicans. It's fucking Guadalajara. Nobody's calling Mexicans lazy. Everybody knows they're hardworking. This is a worthless point. Mexicans are not lazy.
Except they take jobs that are so hard that Americans refuse to do them almost at any wage. How can anyone call Mexicans lazy? But that is the one stereotype that's affixed to them, even though they appear to be the hardest working people in the country. Amazing, right?
No, that's not amazing at all. And the only thing amazing in that is that this is a classic straw man. He invents a racial stereotype, a false one based on nothing. Mexicans are lazy. And then he's like, oh, it's amazing, right? It's unbelievable, right? It's not even true. But watch. Let's see where else he goes with this.
Black people are violent, another racist stereotype.
Cenk, yet again, he strawmans. Black people are violent. Well, Cenk, let me ask you a question. If I told you that black people in America commit by far the most violent crimes per capita, by far, like not even close, like Secretariat winning the race by 20 lengths, what would you say? You wouldn't say anything. You would deny it. You would literally ignore it. But a fair statement is to say black people in America commit way more violent crime than everybody else. It's not a stereotype. That's a true statement.
And they say intrinsically violent.
No, nobody says that. Not a single person. No, intrinsically violent. Nobody's saying that. See, this is a straw man. Oh, Cenk, yeah, you're going to take on this one, right? Intrinsically violent. So if I show you the stats, hey, here are the number of violent crimes this year, and here's the graph for black people, and here's the one for Asian, and here's the one for white, and look at these graphs. They're not even close. They're not even close, dude. So now we are observing a trend, an actual thing that happens in reality. So what do these people do? They say, oh, so you're saying they're inherently? You're saying it's intrinsic? You're saying the blackness is the cause? No, I'm saying, look at this graph. These people did this. They cannot grapple with the fact. So he's now going to derail and talk about something else. Watch.
Now look, you say, oh, the crime rate's higher in the inner cities.
No, I say the crime rate is higher within the black community of America. Oh, the black people do live in the inner cities, sure. But it's not the inner city, this term that you just threw out there. It's the black people in the inner city. Chicago did not kill 12 people 2 weekends ago. It was a black people living in Chicago.
That's wrong for a lot of different reasons, as we've covered on the show.
You want to talk about psychologically breaking somebody down? Watch this. Okay, so what do we know right now? We know that black people commit more crimes per capita, and it's not even close. We know that. Everybody knows that. Now he's saying, I'm wrong. Do you hear that? He said, we're wrong for thinking that black people in the inner cities commit more crime, all this violent crime. But interestingly enough, he's not going to refute the graph. He's not going to refute the stats, the numbers, the FBI, the crime rates, the prison populations. No, he's not going to say like, oh, you're mistaken on that. You didn't carry the one. And so it turns out that Koreans commit most crime. No, he's going to say we're wrong to think that black people commit a disproportionate number of violent crimes because reasons. And here are his reasons. Get ready for this shit. This is peeling back the curtain of what is happening inside the mind of a regressive, of a fucking dipshit, anti-white guy, a guy who is racist towards white people, a guy who is condescendingly racist towards black people. A guy who's a Turk, so needless to say, he's probably racist towards Jews and Armenians and Kurds and Greeks and Syrians, but, to varying degrees.
It's because the cops go out of their way to arrest African Americans even though they don't commit crime at any greater rate.
This is honest to Christ, his view about what's happening in the world. He thinks black people and white people commit crime at the same rate. And the only reason that these numbers are the way they are is because the cops go after black people. Now, what you have just heard is a widespread accusation of national racism. So on a case-to-case basis, he's saying there's not black people dealing drugs. There are no such thing as black gangs. That shooting in Chicago didn't happen. The guy with the AK-47 in Vegas, that didn't happen. Those riots you just saw didn't happen. That was cops just going after, just fabricating these numbers. Cops, just inherently racist cops. Kind of like the cops at the O.J. Simpson case. You remember the bullshit that came up with that? The bullshit was O.J. Simpson went and stabbed to death 2 white people in a jealous rage. He bled everywhere on the crime scene, on the way back to his house, in his car. His hand was cut, bleeding from a fresh wound. There was blood in his driveway. Her blood, the victim's blood at his house. Blood everywhere. This was the most obvious situation in the history of the legal system. I was there, as some of you know. I was at the OJ case, and I lived in the Pacific Palisades, which is adjacent to Brentwood. Okay, this is my neighborhood. I lived in Brentwood. Now, what did the fucking defense say? They said that the cops, all of a sudden, just because, cops and white people, they're just basically racist, right? Right. So what did they do? Oh, they saw a black guy. There's a black person who's a suspect here. It's O.J. Simpson, famous and beloved sports star and actor. Oh, you know what I should do? I should plant a bloody glove at his house. I'm going to take a bloody glove that has the blood of the victims. I'm going to walk it over to his house, which is minutes away, and I'm going to plant it. Why? Because fuck black people. That's why. Because I want to frame this guy. I want to invent and fabricate the fact that this guy killed his wife and Ron Goldman, ex-wife. This is what they are presenting as their explanation as to why the world is the way the world is. and the answer is white people just making shit up. I would love to interview any police officer, any police commissioner, and ask them about this theory. This theory that Cenk Uygur has just floated out into the forum of free thought. Oh God, the free thought blogs. No, into the ether, into the public discourse for us to shine a light on and say, is this idea gonna make it in the free marketplace of ideas? I don't think so, Cenk. It's just astonishing. I mean, you go crime by crime on this. It's a conspiracy, according to him. Blacks and whites commit the same amount of crime. So the fact that black people commit almost 3 times the amount of rape that white people do, I guess that's a conspiracy too? Is that just women, like white women, just reporting falsely? It's like, black guy raped me. Give me the rape kit. Yep, I'm coming public with my rape. And I'm just doing this just to pretend that black people raped me. Yeah. Or how about the murders? How about just dead bodies? So we got dead bodies everywhere. And apparently, each and every case, it doesn't stack up. So in other words, we don't know who killed these people. It's just a big mystery. No, Cenk, we do know who killed these people. And the police do their jobs and track down the people. They follow the evidence, and the evidence points to the person that did it. And the person that did it is most often a young black male. Another completely true statement. And it's completely preposterous for him and others like him. There are other pussies, demented, delusional pussies who have an agenda and who are not comfortable with the fact. The Amazing Atheist said it the other day. I put it in a video. He said, black people and white people commit the same number of crimes. It's just that white people get away with it more. I mean, this is baffling. It's not like 52% to 48%. Look at the graph. Look at this graph. This graph takes into account the difference in population. So this graph is saying if there was an even number of whites and blacks in this country, these are the stats. This is what it looks like visually. And this fucking bloated buffalo is trying to deny this. He's literally denying that. Let's hear his next reason.
But intrinsically violent?
No, Cenk, nobody's ever said intrinsically violent, but look at the fucking graph. They don't have to be intrinsically violent. Who cares about intrinsic? They are violent in reality, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's what they are doing right now, and that's what we're commenting on. So why don't you, instead of wrestling with some argument that nobody's making, why don't you wrestle with this? Black people are more violent than every other race in America. Are. Not intrinsically, not inherently, just are. Just look at the fucking stats. I mean, what is so difficult about this? It's amazing.
Okay, this is said by the people who took blacks from Africa violently, imposed slavery upon them for hundreds of years, and then Jim Crow and the lynchings and the rape and the murder and the slavery for all that time, and blacks are intrinsically violent. It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, here we go. He went right to it. He went right to it. Bing, bang, boom. We're going to slavery. He didn't even go through the poverty part. Most regressives will walk you to slavery. You don't just come up with slavery. Christ, that might seem like a non sequitur. No, usually the process is, well, it's not black people. It's not really their fault because they come from poverty. And we know that when you're in poverty, you tend to commit crime. And it's really not their fault that they're in poverty. I mean, they are living in a racist world. It's a bunch of white racists. And there's institutional racism. There's systemic racism. I mean, the cops are going after them. The cops are killing them everywhere, right? And so they have no access to jobs, and they're facing all this discrimination, and they're such victims. In fact, they're hostages here. They're not even supposed to be here. They were slaves, man. We enslaved them. So that's the usual progression. He just fast forwarded and just went right to slavery. I mean, listen to the logic. So the logic there is, look at this graph right here, okay? That is what is happening in the world you live in America. These are the crimes, and these are the people committing them. See, Cenk is a racist. That's what you have to understand. He's racist in a way that you might not typically think. He's racist against white people, and he's racist against black people because he condescends to them. He views them as down, not Down syndrome, just being down. They are oppressed. Don't punch down. Okay, they are the minority to be protected and coddled. Oh, let me pet your head. Let me pet your head. Well, I can't pet your head because that would be racist because white people like to touch the hair of black people and see what happens to it when it gets wet. Oh, but black people don't like to swim. Oh, another stereotype. Another stereotype that's true. Are you saying all black people don't swim? What the fuck? What the fuck, dude? Stupid motherfuckers. So yes, this is what's happening. These are the violent crimes. These are the people doing it. Now, what I want you to focus on, person looking at this graph, is that white people enslaved black people. Aha! So therefore, who are you to judge these people? You brought them here in a fucking boat. They can do whatever they want. How dare you try to criticize criminal behavior? How dare you?
Okay, this is said by the people who took blacks from Africa violently, imposed slavery upon them for hundreds of years, and then Jim Crow and the lynchings and the rape and the murder and the slavery for all that time, and blacks are intrinsically violent. It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh my fucking God. So a Johnny Black guy who's gonna go out and kill somebody tomorrow in a gang shootout, or just to steal, just out stealing, killing, which is what happens the most in our country, that guy, how dare you criticize him? How dare you even talk about it? How dare you even talk about what he's gonna do? Because he, apparently, in some magic, has suffered through hundreds of years of slavery. He, this 17-year-old guy who's gonna kill somebody tomorrow, he suffered through Jim Crow and lynchings and rape and slavery. So what the end result is, what they're trying to do is end the conversation. They want to shut you up with social pressure. They're going to throw out labels. If you try to talk about this, if you try to say, I'm against people who commit crime, and I'm also aware of who is committing crime, and it's coming from this demographic the most, by fucking far the most. Cannot stress that enough. And so what they will do is say, here's a bunch of buzzwords. Let me muddy this water up and make you feel guilty